Hey everybody, welcome on our channel. In this video we are gonna see, what if Naruto took Republic City by storm with the Avatar Korra? Part 4. If you are new on the channel, don't forget to subscribe our channel and like the video too. So without wasting any more time, let's start the story. The door to a basement opened. Two figures entered. One suspended in air, while the other slowly walked down the stairs. Tarlock continued walking down while bloodbending Korra and headed towards a platinum cage. While hovering in the cage, Korra looked at Tarlock. "What are you doing?" she questioned as he dropped her and locked the cage. "Tarlock," she shouted. "You can't keep me in here forever," she shouted at him. "Oh, actually I can," Tarlock said in return. "I will get out of here," Korra said as she continued to bang the cage. Now Avatar Korra, behave or I may just pay a visit to our dearest friend Naruto," Tarlock said sinisterly. "What?" Korra gasped. "I'm sure even he wouldn't survive if say, he was suddenly attacked by the equalists a second time to ensure his demise is accomplished," he said in a sickening tone. Korra's eyes widened from that he would go find Naruto and make sure to kill him for real this time. "If you so much as touch him I'll kill you if it's the last thing I ever do," Korra screeched in uncontrollable rage as she rammed her cage trying to get out. "That is very unladylike behavior, Korra. What would your boyfriend say?" "Oh wait, he's unconscious in the hospital," Tarlock said in mock understanding as he laughed, leaving behind a raging Korra. "In the world of dreams. You really are an idiot, aren't you?" said a deep menacing voice. Naruto was drifting in his sleep and turned to the voice in his head to see Kurama. "What are you doing here, furball?" Naruto asked in bewilderment. Kurama gained a tick mark on his head for the furball comment. "Just checking on my moronic owner," the fox said snidely. Naruto snorted. "Yeah, like Kurama could really do that. What are you, my conscience or something?" he asked in interest. "Yes, your conscience," Kurama answered with irritation. "You know that deep voice of yours just doesn't go with your tiny body," Naruto commented offhandedly. "That's it," Kurama shouted and grew to the size of a mountain and grew 8 extra tails. He brought his large muzzle to Naruto's face and breathed out of it, causing Naruto to take a few steps back. "Who's tiny now?" the fox mocked childishly in a tone that dared him to try and give a witty comeback. Me?" Naruto asked, stated in a bit of fear as he was looking up at the largest creature he's ever seen. Kurama smiled. "Good, you're learning. Now, let's talk about getting yourself blown up," the fox started. "Yeah, how did that happen?" Naruto asked, trying to play what happened in his head. "Simple, you got your dumb blown up," Kurama mocked as he poked Naruto with one of his large tails, with the tip of it right in the blonde's chest. The gentle poke was enough to cause Naruto to stumble back and nearly fall on his butt. Naruto's eye twitched at that. "Thank you for your oh so wise words, oh conscience of mine," the blonde replied irritably as he got up. "Thus doing my job," the fox quipped back. Ah, how he missed the banter between him and the original idiot he had for a host. "Now, you got blown up. You're getting better, but you got a lot of to do and little time to do it," the giant fox said seriously. "Like what?" Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. The fox just smiled at him disturbingly. "Why should I tell you that? It's all the more fun for me, for you to figure it out," the fox said laughing. "Idiot conscience." Naruto muttered. Wait, didn't that make him idiot too? This was getting confusing. "Time to get you in gear, idiot, now wake up," the fox shouted, his voice booming in the end, and the very force sent Naruto flying back like if he was being pulled by a vicious hurricane. "Whoa," Naruto shouted as he started to fade from his mindscape. "Do what you do best, child of prophecy," Kurama said with a grin. Naruto raised another questioning eyebrow. What was a child of prophecy? Hospital. Naruto rose from his bed in a gasp. He winced as he tried to move and had minimal success, but it seemed his famous luck wasn't with him this week as a nurse was passing by and saw him. "Chief Beefrong, what are you doing?" the nameless nurse gasped in shock as she rushed to his side. "Getting up," he muttered to her as he slowly managed to stand up. "You were almost blown up, sir, we can't have you moving around," the nurse said sternly as she made him sit on the again. "Does it look like I care?" Naruto stated as he tried to move again, but the nurse wouldn't have it. "I can't allow that, sir. You shouldn't even be conscious for until a few more days," she stated in slight awe as she struggled to keep him in bed. "I got better," he quipped back. "Now move," he said in authority. "Can I get a doctor in here?" the nurse shouted out the door while holding Naruto. "Ow, that hurts," Naruto said in mock pain. She let go instinctively when she heard that, and Naruto got off the bed and ran as fast as he could as he headed out the hospital like no tomorrow. "Security," the nurse shouted. Bad day, bad day, bad day," Naruto said to himself as he winced with every step he took as the door was blocked by 2 burly security guards. "Hey guys, you think you can let me out?" Naruto asked nicely. The guards stood there like stone statues. Okay, new plan. You move and I won't arrest you for obstruction of justice. The blonde said with a glare, I hear Big Y likes new meat. He added sinisterly. They moved out of the way fast. Thank you, gentlemen. The blonde said as he gave a mock salute and head to the streets. Sometimes it pays to be a high-ranked officer of the law. Naruto though to his satisfaction. Naruto ran to the front of the road and looked for a means of transportation. Taxi. He shouted and in 5 seconds a yellow Satomobile was there. He hopped into the car. Where to, bub? The big driver asked. The from manor. Naruto replied. They were going down the road and the driver started a conversation. He looked through the rear view and saw the young chief in a hospital gown. You're not an escaped mental patient, are you? He asked. Do I look crazy to you? Naruto asked dryly. Not really, but then why the getup? I needed to leave fast and I didn't have any clothes with me to change into. The driver looked at him more careful and grinned. Hey, you're that new chief that got blown up. How you doing? He asked with cheerfulness. Amazing, despite the fact that I just got blown up. Naruto replied with irritation. Well, you look better. The driver nodded. So you hear that the Avatar was taken by the Equalists? The driver stated without care. Wait, what? Naruto shouted in surprise. The driver nodded. Yeah, I heard that she and Councilman Tarlock were attacked in City Hall. A real shame. He said as he honked the horn aggressively. Watch where you're going, you mook. He shouted out the window. Can you go faster? Naruto asked in anger. Shit, what happened when he was out of it? The driver turned in his seat. Sir, there is traffic, you got to wait like everyone else. Naruto was foaming at the man and started tapping his foot. A few long minutes later the driver started to talk again. Does this look infected to you? He asked as he showed his elbow that had a deep green scab-like thing growing on it. Naruto stared at the scab and then the driver and then back to the scab. He then did the only thing he could do right now, bang his head against the car seat in front of him. No matter what damage he already had to his head. In the downtown area of Republic City. Lin, Tenzin along with Mako, Bolin and Asami were walking down a sewer tunnel, hoping to find Equalists to lead them to Korra and to get payback for nearly killing Naruto. Lin and Tenzin were up front, Bolin behind them, while Mako and Asami were in the back. Lin heard what happened to Korra over the radio and decided it was time for her to get back into the field, so she went to Tenzin and Team Avatar and got them to join her for the mission to save Korra. Lin and Asami were especially looking eager to find some Equalists to take down after taking Korra and almost killing Naruto, which everyone else easily noticed. Mako however was now wondering why Asami looked so eager and angry. He knew Naruto was her closest friend and everything, but she seemed to be taking it so personally and it made wonder if there was something going on that he didn't know about. Hey Asami. Mako said softly so the others didn't hear. Asami turned to him. Yes, what is it? Not to be rude or anything, but is there something going on between you and Naruto? He questioned, which got her attention instantly. Asami looked a little uncomfortable. Why do you ask that? It's just that you seem to be taking what happened to Naruto very personally. I know it's because he was almost killed and we also want payback for him, but you and Lin seem to want your own revenge. Plus I saw he was comforting you when we were at that beach party. He questioned further as he noticed that Asami looked a bit unnerved by the questions. Asami thought to herself for a moment as she contemplated telling him what she told Korra at the hospital about how close Naruto was to her. She thought Mako, who was her boyfriend, deserved to know, but that discussion with Korra was a very special and private moment. Eventually, after some more thought, she decided to answer. Well, I guess I should tell you the truth. You already know what happened to my mother. Well, I guess it all started from there. After that incident, both me and Naruto were scarred by the traumatic experience we went through that day. Eventually we overcame it and managed to return to our happy lives. Naruto visited me more and we got closer together as our friendship grew. She said with a bit of a smile. Mako was a bit wide-eyed. So does that mean that you and he trailed off? No, we were never boyfriend and girlfriend, although to be honest, I did love him in that way in the past. Mako was now a bit confused. Then what changed? Time moved forward, my feelings for him changed as I saw him as something different from a love interest. Over time Naruto has been there for me to talk and comfort me whenever I felt the pain of losing my mother again, and I there for him when he felt remembers the incident that caused him to kill at such a young age. She stated. She took a moment on how to phrase it. In a way Naruto has become the brother I always wished I had. It's funny we aren't related at all, and Naruto is an only child like me, but he just seems to have taken the role of being a brother, so well that it's almost like he was a long-lost brother to me. You never told me any of this before? Mako asked. There are some things I prefer to keep to myself. Korra questioned me as well on the same thing, and I told her the same thing I just told you. That's why I'm taking this personally, because Naruto is my brother and Korra is my friend, and I won't let these creeps get away with hurting them. She said in a serious tone. Reiko smiled, I'm with you on that, Korra's my friend and teammate and Naruto's my new bud, and I'm not gonna let them down. But that said, both of them continued their mission with the others. From Manor. The taxi cab carrying Naruto finally arrived at his home. Naruto had his left eye twitching like crazy at how he had to deal with traffic and the driver's unusual questions. That's it, I'm never taking a cab ever again. I'd rather walk than deal with this. He thought to himself in irritation at how he nearly went crazy in there. Naruto rushed out of the taxi and headed to the door. Hey. What about my pay? The driver shouted. Bill it to me later. Naruto shouted back as he opened the door and rushed inside as best he could. Jerk. The driver muttered as he drove away. Naruto was heading to their secret attic. It was a room he built himself 3 years ago so they could have more storage space, but unknown to his mother, he was also keeping something hidden from her. He went down and walked up ahead to step in front of a messenger bird cage. Inside it was none other than a Fire Nation messenger hawk that used to be used for delivering messages during Avatar Ong's time. He knew how outdated this kind of thing was ever since electronic radio communication was invented. Ever since then the old animal messengers became obsolete and unused, but he still saw use for them. He had to find a bird trainer and that was not easy, but it paid off as it was the perfect way to make contact in secret if he had to get one of his informants to do something in secret, and it was time to contact them now that Korra was captured. Hi Hawky, how you doing? Naruto asked as he opened the cage and let Hawky out to cling to his arm as he screeched while stretching his wings. Sorry I haven't let you out in a while, things have been crazy with everything Amon's been doing, but now I need your help. Naruto said as Hawky screeched like if said he was ready. Alright Hawky, time to do what you do best. Naruto said as he wrote a quick one-line message and tied the carrier to the hawk's back as he slid the note in and closed the capsule. He carried the bird to a window, opened it and let the hawk fly away to his destination. Bet they're fast Hawky. Naruto muttered as he went to get dressed and winced as he held his ribs, damn it. He shouted as he headed to his closet. He put on his casual outfit and headed to Air Temple Island. All he could do now was hope that his informant could save Korra. Unknown location. The figure was lying in a room taking a light nap from his work when the individual suddenly heard a pecking noise at his window. The person stood up and showed to be a male as he stepped into the light and opened his window. He picked up the hawk and uncorked the message and proceeded to read it. The warrior of shadows steps into the light once more. HN. The male said as he threw the message into his fireplace and walked to do his mission. City Hall. After finding no signs of Korra when they invaded the Equalist's facility, they decided to return to City Hall. Lin and Asami had taken down the guards hard and fast, and they interrogated them on the location of Korra and the one responsible for bombing Naruto, but the Equalist's guard revealed that they weren't responsible for Korra's disappearance or Naruto's attempted murder. They even said that their leader Amon hasn't even made any new orders for them to attack Republic City yet, since he's been staying out of sight for some reason. When they asked why, he said he didn't know, only that Amon was preparing for something. Their mission was a failure, but Lin was at least able to find her captured metal benders, but sadly, their bending was already taken when they found them. As Tenzin led the group in, they approached the council. Thank you all for meeting us on such short notice. The monk said. Have you news of Avatar Korra? Tarlock asked as he walked in. We do. Tenzin said as he pointed at Tarlock, you kidnapped her Tarlock. I am shocked that you would accuse me of such an evil act. I already explained, Equalists attacked us and took her. The waterbender stated. But there were no Kai blockers here last night. You planted the evidence, didn't you? Tenzin questioned. That is a ridiculous accusation. Tarlock countered. It's true. Said a voice on the second floor balcony. Hiding behind a pillar was the council secretary. He took her. I was here when Avatar Korra arrived last night, but Councilman Tarlock ordered me to leave. I was on my way out when I saw Tarlock bring her down to the garage. She said. That is nonsense. Everyone knows you're nothing more than a squeaky-voiced liar. Tarlock shouted in anger. Why did you wait until now to fess up? Lin asked with her arms crossed. I was terrified to tell because Tarlock is a bloodbender. The secretary shouted, he bloodbent Avatar Korra. He even said that he was the one who blew up Chief Bifeng's office. Lin's eyes went wide at that and she snarled at Tarlock as her body was shaking from pure rage. Tarlock. Lin shouted as she charged at him with her metal wrist blades, but was stopped in mid-strike as Tarlock was not only bloodbending her, but the rest of the group. He slowly started to bring them to their knees and then knocked them out as he fled City Hall. At a hidden factory. Hiding inside this factory was none other than Amon himself, who was speaking with Mr. Sato in a room separate from the development chamber. So I trust everything will be ready by the scheduled time I gave you. Amon said in his usual cold tone. Yes, they will. In fact, development is proceeding ahead of schedule, so we should have everything ready in about a day or two. Excellent, you've done well Mr. Sato, with your help everything will go as planned, and then Republic City and all their benders will fall with it, Amon said. But I don't want Naruto or my daughter hurt. Once he's been purified I expect you to not throw him in prison. Mr. Sato stated clearly. Amon nodded, of course after all once his bending is gone, he'll no longer pose a threat to my plans, so he'll be free to wander around. Mr. Sato said nothing for a moment as he thought of what he heard what recently happened to Naruto. You weren't behind that bombing assault on Naruto were you? Then to his surprise Amon chuckled lightly, do not presume I would do something as pathetic and trivial as that Mr. Sato. I prefer a more direct approach when dealing with an enemy. Besides you just said you don't want Naruto hurt, so why would I do this? He questioned back. Mr. Sato said nothing as he believed Amon and went back to their plans. Master Amon. Both Sato and Amon turned to see an equalist running forward with a message in his hand. What is it? Amon questioned as he didn't like being disturbed when he was planning his next move. I thought you should read this, it's a report from our informants on something I think you'll find very interesting. The equalist said as he handed the message to Amon. Amon looked it over and read it, and when as he did a smirk developed under his mask at what he read. When he was done he threw the letter away and started to head out. Where are you going Amon? Mr. Sato questioned. To purify the one who made you doubt me. Amon said without turning back. With Korra. Korra was currently in a platinum cage meditating as she reviewed Avatar Ong's vision to her. Ong, this whole time you were trying to warn me about Tarlock. She said in realization. She heard a door open and feet descending down the steps of the basement she was being held in. My life is a disaster now thanks to you and your little boyfriend. Tarlock said with a sneer as he approached his prisoner. So your little bloodbending secret is out? She asked in a triumphant tone. Tarlock grunted in aggravation. And now I know how you bloodbend without a full moon. You're Yakin's son. Korra stated. I was his son. Tarlock said in a low tone, but in order to win Republic City, I had to become someone else. My father failed because he tried to rule the city from its rotten underbelly. My plan was perfect, I was to be the city's savior, but you and that blasted boy ruined everything. He shouted in anger. Tarlock, the jig is up and you have nowhere to go. Korra stated. Oh no, I'll escape and start a new life, and you're coming as my hostage. You'll never get away with this. Korra shouted as she banged her cage. Tarlock walked upstairs and saw Amon, the lieutenant, and 3 Kai blockers. Amon? Tarlock said in surprise. Korra's eye opened wide when she heard that name. It is time for you to be equalized. Amon stated in a calm voice as his men prepared to strike. You fool. You've never faced bending like mine. Tarlock proclaimed as he raised his hands in the air and started to bloodbend the equalists and their leader. The Kai blockers and the lieutenant were down, but Amon was still standing. Tarlock gasped in shock and tried to bloodbend Amon once more as he approached him. Amon froze for a moment as he seemed to struggle, but then he continued forward as he seemed to permanently break free from his control. What are you? Tarlock questioned as he backed up. I am the solution. Amon simply answered as he quickly grappled Tarlock down and took his bending away as he screamed in pain. The equalist got up as Amon picked up Tarlock. I'll take care of him, you 4 will retrieve the Avatar. Do not underestimate her, electrocute the box to knock her out before you open it. Amon commanded as walked outside with Tarlock in tow. My pleasure. The lieutenant answered as he walked down and grabbed his electro-collie sticks at zap the cage. H. Korra shouted in mock pain as she hung from the bars in the ceiling of her cage by one of her arm bracers. After a few moments the lieutenant stepped away, opened the box. He ordered 2 Kai blockers who complied. They opened it to see Korra knocked out in the cage. Tie her up. He said, and just as the 2 Kai blockers were about to grab her, the 3rd Kai blocker saw her movements and stepped back just in time as Korra unleashed a fire-blasting kick at them. They jumped out of the way and readied their weapons just as Korra slammed the ground and caused them to lose their footing and bought herself some time to get upstairs. The 3rd Kai blocker was already up and ran after her and came out just in time as he saw Korra launch icicles at Amon as she ran away, and Amon followed with him, joining him in the pursuit. Korra seeing the Kai blocker and Amon, she fled down the hill, but the Kai blocker just jumped down the hill and kept pursuing her. Amon stopped at the end of the steep hill and the lieutenant joined him a moment later. I thought I told you not to underestimate her? Amon questioned in a disapproving tone. Should we follow? The lieutenant asked. No, the one that went after her has never let his prey escape before. He will most likely chase her and bring her back to one of our bases, so there's no need to worry. Come, let us leave. Amon commanded as they left. With Korra. Korra was using her water bending to propel herself down the hill of snow and saw the Kai blocker still chasing her as he was using a flat piece of wood to sled down the hill towards her at a frightening speed. Ah, can't you guys just leave me alone? She shouted at the man chasing her and sent some icicles at him, but he dodged them with grace and was gaining on her. "Watch out for that risen root Avatar Korra," he shouted, and Korra looked in front of her just in time to see the root and jumped it, avoiding a wipeout. She came to a stop and got into her stance as she breathed heavily as the masked man came to a stop about 20 feet from her. The Kai blocker raised his hands in the air in a surrendering manner and spoke calmly, "I mean you no harm Avatar Korra." He spoke in a smooth tone. "Be alright," Korra said in a deadpan expression. "I have proof that I'm on your side Avatar Korra," he said. "Oh, and what is that?" Korra asked sarcastically. "If you snap the heel of my right boot off you'll see the symbol of the bifrong flying boar. I am Naruto's informant within the Equalist," he answered. Korra blinked at that. "You can restrain me while you check," he said as he lowered his arms and stood still. "Okay, but no funny business," Korra said in a threatening tone. "Of course not." Korra raised her hands and encased all but his head and neck in ice. She walked up to him, melted the ice by his right foot and removed the boot. "Do hurry though, I'm feeling a tad bit chilly in this icicle and I'd rather not get a cold," he said in light humor. "Ha. Korra laughed dryly at the humor as she snapped the heel off and her eyes widened at seeing the bifrong family symbol of the flying boar. "You're really on our side," she said in slight shock. "Yes, now about avoiding that cold and freeing the rest of my body," he commented. Yeah, just a sec," Korra said as she melted the ice and handed him his boot back, though it still didn't have the heel to it. "That's alright Avatar Korra. Now come, we have ground to cover if we wish to reach the city," he said as he started walking and his hand went through the pouch hanging from his hip. He pulled out an apple and tossed it to Korra. "I thought you might be hungry," he said. And true enough, Korra's stomach growled. Thanks," she said as she took a bite. It was a bit cold since she froze him, but cold food was better than no food. But Naruto walked off the dock at the temple and head to the main temple just as he saw everyone heading out to the flying bison colony. "Naruto!" Lin shouted in shock as she ran up to him and hugged him tightly. Ow, mom, that hurts," the blonde shouted. Lin let go and then slapped in on the back of the head. "Ah, the hell. I have a concussion," Naruto shouted in indignity. "You're grounded till the end of time," Lin said in a no-nonsense tone. "Is that really what you should be saying to me?" Naruto questioned dryly. Lin hugged him softly this time and started to shack as a few tears came from her eyes. "I'm so glad you're safe," she whispered to him and Naruto hugged back. "I won't leave you mom, that's a promise for a lifetime," the blonde said in turn. "Naruto," Asami shouted as she ran to him and hugged him as tears fell from her eyes. "You stupid idiot. Do you know how worried I was?" Asami asked as she hiccuped a bit. "A lot?" Naruto asked. "Yes. A lot," Asami shouted at him as she let him go. Mako and Bolin smiled at him and waved as Tenzin ruffled his hair. "Good to see back on your feet. I surprised they let you out," the monk said. "Yeah, we'll go with that," Naruto said as he followed them. "What's the plan? Amon's got Korra, right?" he asked with a frown. "No. Tarlock staged it as he was the one who took Korra, but he also tried to kill you too," Tenzin said somberly. Naruto digested this and threw his hands in the air. "Wahoo!" he cheered. "Naruto, why are you cheering?" asked a concerned Bolin. "I finally have an excuse to kick Tarlock's ass," Naruto said with a big smile. Everyone else sweat dropped at that. They reached Ugi and started to climb on. Yip, Tenzin said as they took to the skies in hope of finding Korra. With Korra and the informant. Korra followed the non-Kai blocker and started to ask some questions. "So how do you know Naruto?" she asked. "We ran through the same information circles and decided to work together since we are both the best in that field," he answered simply. "I see, so that's why he has that whole spy network going on for him, right?" she asked. "Indeed, although he does say that I'm the reason it's such a success." "How did you get so close to Amon?" she continued. "I'd rather wait until you're reunited with everyone before I reveal that information," the man said in a slightly emotionless way as he kept walking. At that, Korra was now curious about how he infiltrated Amon's group but decided to wait like he said until they're back in the city with everyone else. "Are you going to take your mask off?" she asked. "Not really, it's quite warm," he said in a humorous tone. They tuned to the sound of barking and saw a polar bear dog heading their way. "Naga, you came looking for me. Good girl," Korra said as she stroked her polar bear dog. Said animal guide started to growl at the man, but Korra wouldn't allow that. "No Naga, he's a friend," she said to her companion who stopped growling. "We should get back quicker now," he commented as Korra mounted Naga. "Yeah, hop on," Korra said in a happy tone and the man jumped behind her on Naga's back. With Naruto. They flew through the skies till they started to hear a barking noise. "That's Naga," Mako said as they saw Naga with not only Korra but an Equalist. Korra. Tenzin said in fear. Relax Uncle Tenzin, he's my informant. Naruto stated as he jumped off Ugi as she landed. Naruto. Korra said as she jumped off Naga and hugged him tightly. Oh. What is with the tight hugs, I just got blown up. He joked with her as she smiled at him and kissed him deeply, which he gladly returned. A moment later Naruto separated himself since his ribs still hurt and he couldn't hold his breath as long during the makeout. Hey water princess. He said kindly. Hey right back Earth prince. She said lovingly. Ahem. The masked man said as he crossed his arms, and if people could see his face, it would show that it was slightly annoyed at being ignored. Naruto rolled his eyes. Take the mask off already, you won't need it anymore. Very well. The man answered. The equalist took off his mask and the group looked to see a fairly tall young man with black hair with bangs that framed his handsome face and a low ponytail that reached into his upper back. Two of his most unique features with the long pronounced tear troughs under his eyes and his blood-redder eyes as dot. If Asami and Korra didn't have boyfriends they would be blushing slightly from seeing him. I am Itachi Mabarashi, it is a pleasure to meet you all. He said with a light bow. Naruto was watching over Korra's sleeping form and sighed in relief once again that she was okay. He stood up and left the room as he quietly closed the door. He continued down the hallway but paused as he noticed something. I'm out Itachi. Naruto said in a grunt of annoyance. Itachi slowly walked out of the shadows while still wearing his Kai blocker's uniform. Morning to you as well Naruto. The spy said in a light humorous tone with a very well hidden smile that was barely noticeable unless you looked closely. So what did you find out? Naruto asked in a serious tone. It's bad. Itachi said as he shook his head. I would prefer to have Councilman Tenzin and Avatar Korra present when we discuss this. He said as he started walking to the kitchen. Fine. Naruto said in annoyance as he followed Itachi to get some breakfast. Korra had woken up while the two were talking and eating, as if the food would disappear. Naruto was sitting next to her as he had a loaf of bread to nosh on. Easy water princess, the food isn't going anywhere. He teased lightly, seeing her eat in a way that looked very similar to how his grandmother described Sokka would eat when he was really hungry and there was meat on the table. Korra just stuck her tongue at him as she took a few more bites and a sip of soup. Hey, I was locked away for a few long hours with no food or water, so excuse me wanting to refill my empty stomach. She then turned to Pima. The food tastes amazing Pima. The Avatar said as she finally took a break. I'm finally starting to feel like myself again. She added as she took another bite of food. Naruto just squeezed her hand lightly in an affectionate way that she returned as well. Lin grunted in annoyance at this, but said nothing. We're just so thankful that you're home safe. Pima said as she stood up from the table and started to take some of the dishes to clean. Here, let me help. Asami said as she also stood up and took the remaining dishes. Korra, I realize that you've been through a lot, but I need you to tell me what happened. Tenzin stated. First off, Tarlock isn't who he says he is. He's Yakin's son. She said. Everyone was stunned at that till Lin gained a look of understanding. It all makes sense now. That's how Tarlock was able to bloodbend us without a full moon. The ex-chief said. But how did you escape? And where's Tarlock? Tenzin asked. I believe I can answer that one, Councilman Tenzin. Itachi said. A group of 3 Kai blockers, with me added in, along with the lieutenant, Amon second in command, had headed into the basement where Avatar Korra was being held. The lieutenant then proceeded to shock the cage Avatar Korra was in, but she was hanging on to one of her arm bracers from the top of the cage to avoid the shock. From there she faked unconsciousness as the other 2 Kai blockers opened the door. I had noticed Avatar Korra's body tensing up, showing that she was still conscious and knew she was about to retaliate, so I had gotten out of the way. After performing the fire-bending maneuver and following it up with an earth-bending one, she escaped upstairs and I had pursued. As I had gotten upstairs, I had witnessed Avatar Korra attacking Amon with an icicle attack, and as Amon weaved through it, Avatar Korra jumped down a steep hill which I followed. After proving I was on her side, we walked through the forest till her polar bear dog had arrived, and then we met up with you. He said in a very militarily-like fashion. As for Tarlock, Amon took his bending away and has no doubt taken him to some kind of location to imprison him for who knows how long, but the thing that's more surprising is how it happened. He said with a serious tone that worried the others. What do you mean? Tenzin asked. What I'm saying is that Tarlock didn't go down without a fight. When he saw us he used his bloodbending, which knocked me, the lieutenant and the other Kai blockers down, but Amon didn't fall. In fact, he was standing without much difficulty, seemingly fighting off Tarlock's control over him. After a few seconds Amon seemed to regain control of himself and approached Tarlock, as if he now became immune to his bloodbending, and with that he caught him easily and took away his bending. Itachi finished with narrowed eyes. Everyone else meanwhile couldn't believe what they just heard. Amon had managed to easily break free of the grip from bloodbending like it was nothing and had easily taken down Tarlock. All of them had experienced having their blood being in someone else's control, which they all tried to fight off to no avail, and yet Amon wasn't the least bit affected by it and even seemed to become immune to it. Needless to say, everyone was now worried and even spooked at what they heard. It just raised more questions about who Amon was and how did he possess these powers. This is very disturbing news. Amon's stronger than we could have imagined and is becoming emboldened. Taking out a councilman, almost capturing the Avatar. I fear Amon is entering his endgame. Tenzin declared. You would be right. Itachi added as he interlocked his fingers as he placed his elbows on the table. Amon has set into motion many things. I would suggest getting the other council members to safety as they are Amon's opening move. The red-eyed man said. Why? Bulin asked. Take away the leaders of the city and that leads to chaos with the people. Naruto answered, I'll call Seiken. He said as he stood up from the table and left to make the call. By the way, you said you would tell me how you got so close to Amon. Korra stated as she was really curious to know how someone could infiltrate Amon's army without being found out for who knows how long. I guess that's fair. Itachi muttered, the truth is that I had him take my bending away by my own free will. He said without any fear or regret. What? Said everyone in shock, except Naruto, who already knew this and was making that call. Although when he first heard it he couldn't believe it either. Why? Korra asked in fright at what she just heard. She couldn't believe someone would just give up their natural gift of bending like it meant nothing to them. It was for the good of the mission. Itachi said emotionlessly. But how did that help you get close to Amon? Bulin asked. I told him when I was young that I couldn't control my bending and in turn burned my house down with my family inside. I managed to get away, but I forever feared my bending. Once I heard that he could take it away, I came straight to Republic City and found him and begged for him to take it away. After he did, I swore to forever serve him. Itachi told and ended with a slight smirk at how he got the better of Amon with that story. Wait, you made that all up? Meiko asked. Yes, I did. After deciding what would be the best believable story to use, I made sure to act very convincing, which got me sympathy from them and a reason to hate benders, thus seeing me as another person to join his forces and his cause for equality. Itachi said normally. Wow. Was muttered around the table. Thank you. Now Itachi started but was interrupted by a loud voice. Boy Itachi, where are you? A feminine voice called out. Itachi groaned a bit to this, now. Right the second she decides to come. I told her to wait for a bit longer. He muttered to himself. As soon as he said that, the door to the dining hall opened wide as a very pretty older girl with short brown hair with two long bangs framing her face, along with a pair of big brown eyes, walked in. She was wearing a black blouse with white trimming and a ruffled end with a pair of white shorts and black stockings and black shoes. Meiko was trying to not look at her like he was examining her, while Bulin blushed and stared at her as he found her to be a beautiful young woman. The mysterious girl was carrying two duffel bags which she set down. She scanned the room and gained a big smile, and her eyes lit up as they landed on Itachi like a lighthouse. Itachi. She shouted as she jumped onto him from a high altitude, showing she must be athletic. Itachi was caught off guard by the glomp and was tackled to the floor. Asami entered the room just in time to see the new girl tackle the young adult. Hello Yuki. Itachi said in a monotone voice as the girl pinned him to floor. Who do you think you are, leaving me all by my lonesome at home? She asked with crocodile tears forming in the corner of her eyes. Itachi gave a slow blink and didn't drop his poker face. It was only a few months and stop with the waterworks. He told her bluntly. In the past those tears worked on him, but now he was as immovable as a mountain. Yuki dropped her teary face and TSK''D in annoyance. Can't you give me something, like a twitch of the eye or a quirk of your lip? Something. She exclaimed as she threw her hands in the air and stood up. Itachi stood up as well and dusted his uniform as he looked at her. I could, but I know it annoys you if I don't, which is more interesting for me. One could hear faint amusement in his tone, but it was really hard to tell with how good he is at hiding his emotions like a faceless person. Yuki puffed her cheeks and crossed her arms as she turned her back to him, which made her look cute. Everyone was clueless at what was going on and were slightly speechless. Naruto walked back into the room and looked shocked at the new girl. Yuki? He said in surprise. Yuki turned to Naruto and squealed in happiness. Naru. She chirped and glumped him too. And just like that, Korra was the first to break the silence and pointed at the girl in anger as she hugged Naruto. Who are you? She questioned in a harsh tone. I'm Yuki Mabarashi, Itachi's wife. She said happily as she cuddled Naruto. Then why the hell are you all over Naruto? Korra raged in her mind. Wait. She's his wife. Damn, how did a guy with the emotional range of a teaspoon manage to get this beautiful, happy, and peppy woman to be his wife? Bulin thought in confusion as he never did understand the whole opposites attract saying when it came to some people. Seriously, why be with someone if you have nothing in common to help support a relationship? Why are you here? Naruto questioned as his face was squished between her breasts. Well, Itachi got your message, so he sent me one to come with his gear. I was staying in Republic City when I heard what was going down with Amon, so I also came as his backup. Yuki stated as she let Naruto go, who was now gulping in oxygen. Backup? Mako questioned. Yuki nodded enthusiastically. Yep, you're looking at the leader of the Kyoshi warriors. She said as she puffed out her ample chest with pride. Wait, isn't Tai Li's granddaughter in charge of the Kyoshi warriors? Tenzin asked. You're looking at her, Gramps. She said in an annoyed tone. Tenzin gained a ticking vein, eyebrow, and an insulted look at being called Gramps. He wasn't even a grandpa yet, and he certainly wasn't that old looking. Was he? Anyhow, honey, could you please go and change now, cause you look stupid in that outfit? Yuki said as she tossed him one of the duffel bags. Itachi grumbled about how it wasn't his fault that Amon lacked a sense of fashion as he went to change. Naruto, any word from Seiken? Lin asked. Naruto nodded. Yeah, he's getting each of the council members and their families to a safe location as we speak. The blonde said as he sat next to Korra. Yuki sat in the seat that was once occupied by Itachi and looked at Naruto with a cat-like grin. Naruto noticed this and sighed. What is it, Yuki? He said as he looked at her. Yuki's smile got bigger. Nothing much, except that Itachi failed to mention, tell me that you got yourself a little girlfriend. She sighed dramatically as she placed the back of her right hand to her forehead. They grow up so fast these days. Then she smiled predatorily like while amusement danced in her eyes. So how far have you two gone? She asked bluntly with a bit of a snicker. Both Naruto and Korra turned bright red at that and started to sputter. Lin looked enraged at the question. No way in hell was she ready to be a grandmother. Oh. Yuki said when a closed fan hit her on the head and a bump started to form. Stop it, Yuki. Itachi said as he tossed her fan to her, which she had caught on reflex. He was currently wearing black baggy pants with a pair of blue sandals. He had a black form-fitting t-shirt and gray metal arm guards. He sat down next to Yuki, who was still nursing her head, and started to speak. As I was saying before I was interrupted, he said as he gave a quick glance, and she sheepishly scratched the back of her head. I know some of the plans that Amon will be using. Though we should have the civilians leave. He added as he looked at Mako, Bolin, and Asami. No way, we've been here from the start, we have a right to be here. Bolin said in anger. Mako nodded. He has a point, besides Naruto and Korra are our friends and friends help each other out. The firebender said. My dad is helping Amon, I have every right to be here too. Asami said as she crossed her arms. Itachi just stared at them, and it slightly unnerved them as he did. The young adult turned to Tenzin. As I said, we should have the civilians leave. Wow, usually the whole friends stick together thing works in this kind of situation. Bolin said in some shock. Itachi turned to him with a more serious look. This isn't a game, this is full-blown war, and it is going to get messy. As good as you think you are, you're just not ready for something of this magnitude. He said sharply. Having another earthbender and a firebender around will come in handy, Itachi. Besides, the closest to understanding Hiroshi's tech would be Asami. Naruto stated. The three teens looked at Naruto with a smile at this. Itachi turned to Naruto. Are you serious? He asked with a death glare. Yes. Naruto answered back with a glare of the same intensity. They continued glaring at each other till Itachi sighed and with much reluctance nodded. Fine. He grunted. Yes. The teens cheered but quieted down once Itachi glared at them. Itachi cleared his throat. Now then, as I was saying, Amon will be invading the city soon, most likely in the time frame of the next 24 hours. So he could start attacking by the next hour. Naruto grumbled. He had to go back to station to get everyone prepared. And get his new project too. Itachi nodded. He also has new equipment for the mecha tanks, large magnets to fight against the metal-bending police force. Naruto banged his hand on the table with annoyance. Damn him. Lin also had a troubled look on her face. This is going to be a problem. She muttered darkly. We'll have to get everyone to get rid of their armor when they come in contact with any mecha tanks. Lin said as she ran her fingers through her hair as she now saw things getting harder for them. But those new magnets forcing her and the rest of the officers to cast their armor aside, that means that the Kai blocker can now strike at their bodies again to easily disable them. So now with or without the armor they'll be in trouble. What kind of numbers are we facing? Lin asked. A lot. Itachi commented dryly. We are going to need the UF for this. He said as he looked at Naruto. Naruto sighed. Another thing on my to-do list. Seriously, why did he have to do so much? Itachi handed him a folder. Be sure to relay this information to them. Naruto nodded and opened the file. As he read it, he looked a little confused. There's not much info here, Itachi. All I can see here are a list of materials. Itachi nodded solemnly. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to gain all the info about Amon's plans before I had to abandon my mission in order to rescue the Avatar. he said with slight regret at that, especially since he felt he was close to getting the important details of the invasion. Asami looked worried. What is it, Naruto? Apparently it's a large list of materials that were delivered to Amon's secret base. The materials include regular metal, screws, bolts, engines, some wires, cables and even wheels. Naruto said with suspicion. Itachi nodded. Correct, apparently he has been working in secret on some kind of new project to ensure their victory in the coming war. Asami gasped and looked down at her lap in sadness. Why did you have to do this, father? Mako saw her sadness and held her hand while giving her a reassuring look which helped her regain her composure after a moment. Oh man, first he builds mecha tanks and now he's working on some kind of ultimate weapon to help Amon rule over Republic City. Does that guy ever take a break from inventing? Bolin complained as he did not enjoy the time they first fought the tanks and he certainly wasn't looking forward to facing some new type of weapon that could be bender-proof. Whatever Sato has been working on, I can tell you that he's certainly not stopping his work considering he stayed in his workshop all the time and doesn't come out except to speak with Amon. The only thing else that does come out are the empty crates and builders who are leaving for the night while Sato stays in working all by himself even when he should be resting. Itachi stated. That's kind of creepy. Bolin said. Mako bumped his brother while glaring at him as Asami looked down again. And with good reason too, since it sounded like her father has become so wrapped up in his hatred for benders that he won't stop or rest until they're all gone from the world. Naruto looked over the list of supplies but was drawing a blank. I can't figure out what he could possibly be making with his things. Say, Asami, do you have any idea? He asked as he gave her the list. Asami looked over the materials. I can't figure it out either, but I do know that these parts are all connectable and functional with each other, so they'll probably all be combined into one creation, and once it's complete more would be made. But one thing I do notice is that these wires and cables are for increasing an engine's capacity, giving it more power, she said with some sadness at knowing that the next master creation of her father would be some weapon for war. Naruto heard enough as he stood up. I'm going to the station. He said as he headed to his room to change into his spare uniform. Korra followed him. Naruto's room. With an exhausted sigh, Naruto plopped himself on his bed. He grabbed a pillow and started to yell into it as it muffled his yelling. He breathed heavily as he dropped the pillow on the bed and held his head in his hands. A war, a damn war. They expect me to be able to help lead the people, but I'm a kid. What the hell do I know about wars? He asked himself. Ah, you've been through worse than this, you idiot, said a voice in his head. Naruto groaned. Great, now I'm hearing voices in my head and they're insulting me. He thought to himself. A small knock came from his open door. He looked up quickly and saw Korra there. Did you hear that? He asked cautiously. Korra gave an awkward smile. I guess Asami was right, you aren't invincible. She said, but realized what she said, not that you aren't amazing, it's just that, you know, you aren't perfect. She blinked and once again reviewing what she had said. I'll stop talking now since I'm absolutely failing at it. She said with a grimace. It's okay. I'm just really nervous. Naruto muttered. Korra sat next to him on the bed. Well, you don't have to be. We're here for you, you know. She said with a more genuine smile this time. Naruto brightened up a little by seeing her smile. Say, Korra, is there any chance you could communicate with Aang or any other past avatar that could give me some wisdom for the coming war? He asked with a bit of desperation in his voice. Korra looked down. I'm sorry, but I haven't learned how to communicate with the other avatars yet. The most I've learned is how to let Aang show me what he tried to tell me before about Tarlock. She said a bit sadly at not being able to help him the way he's asking for. Naruto sighed. Then I guess I'm on my own for this. He saw Korra about to speak, but he stopped her. I know you'll be there to fight with me, Korra, but I do wish I could get some advice about what to do in this coming war. Considering all the wars the avatars fought, I'm sure they could have given me some insight to help me figure out how I should lead others to battle. Korra looked hurt as she saw him in this state of mind. Naruto laid back on the bed to try and relax as Korra did the same while she moved a bit closer to him. She could still see the worry in his eyes, so she decided to do something about it. Hey Naruto? She asked. Yeah? Naruto answered as he turned to face her, only to have her lock lips with him. She continued to kiss him as she rolled on top of him while she placed her hands on both sides of the blonde's head to deepen the kiss. Naruto wrapped his arms around her waist as they brought their bodies closer. They continued to taste each other for a few minutes until they heard a giggle. They both got off each other and looked at the door to see Yuki giggling at them. Well, it's good to know which base you're on. She said and laughed at the teens' now red faces. Naruto stood up with some rigidness. I'm going to get changed now. He said. And I'm going to leave. Korra said as she stood up with just as much rigidness and headed for the door. But Korra, don't you want to hang around and see how it'll feel going to second base with him? Yuki questioned in an innocent tone, but it was anything but innocent. The young Avatar started to leave even faster as her face was so red she was starting to feel lightheaded. That didn't stop Yuki from catching up to her and wrapping an arm around the Water Tribe girl's shoulder. "Well, your execution was good, we need to work on your play a bit," Yuki stated as if she was stating the weather. "What?" Korra blurted out in surprise. "Just how long was she there?" "Now let me tell you something to spice it up. Have you ever heard of Crouching Tiger, Hidden Ferret?" Yuki asked seriously. Korra just looked at her blankly. "Don't worry, Han," Yuki said as she patted Korra's head, "we'll get you bedroom savvy in no time." Korra just wanted to cry as Yuki kept telling her about two do's and don'ts in one's intimate life. At a secret hideout. Deep within the hideout stood Amon as he finished coming out of Sato's workshop and seeing their newly completed weapons. Needless to say, he was very pleased with their completion and their numbers. With those, the war would be in his favor, regardless of whatever the Avatar and police force had planned. Still, one thing that worried him was his missing member Itachi. He had last seen him go after the Avatar down the snowy hill, but he had yet to return or contact them. He felt that something wasn't right. He turned to see an equalist approaching. "Amon, sir, I have news to report," the equalist said with a bow. "Is it about Itachi and the Avatar?" Amon asked. "Actually, yes, it is. It would seem that the Avatar has returned to Republic City and has rejoined with Naruto, Bifrong and the others." "What happened with Itachi?" Amon questioned, hoping to hear what happened to his valuable member. "We have no info on that, sir, he's nowhere to be seen or heard." Amon hummed as he was now in deep thought at what that meant. If the Avatar managed to return to Republic City, then that would mean Itachi was most likely captured somehow. It could be that some ally of the Avatar managed to find her as Itachi had her cornered and he failed to escape. The thought seemed possible to him considering he managed to locate Tarlock's little hideout in less than a day, so it could be that someone who was heading there to save the Avatar managed to locate her and interfere against Itachi. "No matter." Amon began speaking, "Even if they did capture Itachi, they won't get him to talk so easily, and even if they somehow did, they wouldn't learn enough to be able to stop me, especially with what we'll soon unveil in the war." Amon wasn't kidding either, since no one besides the builders and himself knew what was being made in that workshop. He made sure no one else saw what was in there when he went inside, since he wanted to keep it secret until the start of the war. "But sir, what about Itachi? He is an irreplaceable member of the Equalists. Is it wise to leave him behind?" the Equalist asked. "No, I suppose not, but we can't afford to expose ourselves right now. We must wait until we've won this war, and then once it's over we can search the city for Itachi." "As you wish, Amon," the Equalist said as he turned and left his master alone. Back at Air Temple Island. Itachi was outside getting some fresh air as the wind of the night blew, enveloping him in its cool embrace. He always enjoyed the night for its peace and quiet while he stared at the moon. People would find it strange that a firebender, or in his case a former firebender, would be interested in the moon more than the sun, from where their bending grows stronger with, but that was just one of the things that were unique about Itachi. He found the moon to be a more interesting object than the sun. Besides, he couldn't look at the sun directly unless it was setting or rising, so what point would there be in admiring something you couldn't see in all its glory? "Hey there," a feminine voice said. Itachi turned his eyes from their peaceful gaze at the moon as he turned to see Korra. "Sorry if I'm bothering you," Korra said. "Not at all, it seems like you went through a talk with Yuki," Itachi said, slight amusement in his voice. "Please tell me she isn't always like this, cause after what she talked with me about in there, I don't know if I could take another session," she asked in a begging tone. Itachi now looked a little confused. "What did she talk to you about anyway?" he asked in return. Korra instantly blushed as she recalled everything Yuki talked to her about. It started with the dos and don'ts of intimacy relationships, but then she moved on to explaining how her own first time with Itachi went. Thankfully, Yuki didn't give a detail of their night together, but instead just told her how blissful she felt to be with Itachi and how he seemed to be a very skilled first-timer and how she hoped Naruto would be the same for her. "I don't think you want to know," Korra advised against telling him. Itachi, however, just gave her a blank stare. "Try me," he said in an almost daring tone. Korra looked down in embarrassment as she softly mumbled her words. Itachi raised an eyebrow. "Could you repeat that a little louder?" Korra looked up with her face red. "I said she told me about how pleasant it was to be in bed and about how you were good for your first time." Korra nearly shouted as she was not going to repeat that again. She looked up further to see Itachi's face and her eyes widened in surprise at what she saw. Itachi's eyes widened, but that's not what got her attention. What got her focus was the now noticeable blush on his face that even the night couldn't completely hide. Despite the situation, Korra was now laughing slightly. "Ah ha 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 ha, so you can give out a reaction, and here I thought you couldn't break no matter what." Itachi shook his head to rid himself of his blush before looking away. "I swear she planned this just to hear this from you later," he said to Korra irritably. "It wouldn't surprise me if she did," Korra said as she wouldn't mind telling Yuki about the reaction Itachi finally showed from that revelation. Is there anything else you came here for besides to give my wife more ammo on me? Itachi asked with some annoyance in his voice that was well hidden. Korra thought to herself for a minute before she suddenly remembered something she wanted to ask him. Actually, there is something I've wanted to talk to you about. Korra said with some nervousness that got Itachi's attention. What is it? Itachi said as he turned to her again. Why? Korra simply said with a confused expression. Why, what? Itachi asked as he didn't know what she was referring to. Why did you willingly give up your bending just to try and spy Amon? I know you said it was for the mission, but still didn't you feel any fear or hesitation when you were going to lose it? I couldn't even begin to imagine my life without my bending, and I don't think anyone else could, so why is it that you're uncaring about your lost bending? Didn't it mean anything to you at all? Korra asked as she let out what she was feeling ever since she learned that Itachi willingly gave up his bending. Something she couldn't comprehend. Itachi at first did not reply as he simply stared at Korra from her outburst of questions. After a few moments he finally decided to speak. Perhaps a part of me did want me to keep my bending. But that part wasn't enough to make me change the decision I made on that day. He said as he looked into Korra's eyes, showing no regret from what he gave up, and besides, I found something more valuable to me than my bending. Itachi said with a hidden smile. What could you find that's more important than keeping your bending? Korra asked in confusion. Protecting Yuki. Itachi simply said, but with a hidden determination. You mean you willingly gave up your bending for her? Korra gasped out. Itachi nodded, although I did also do it to maintain the peace in Republic City, I also did it so I could learn anything I could from Amon and use it to make sure Yuki wouldn't come to any harm. He finished. Korra was in awe and now had her hands together after she heard that. Oh, that's the sweetest and most selfless thing I have ever heard. It wasn't a hard choice for me, since although we don't seem like it, Yuki and I really do love and care about each other very much, and although I may have enjoyed being a bender, I love Yuki more than I did my bending. Itachi said with a bit of warmth in his voice, showing he meant every word of it. You know, I think I'm starting to see why Yuki loves you and married you. Korra said as tears started developing in her eyes, which she wiped off while her face had a look of understanding and admiration at what she heard. Thanks for the talk, Itachi. Itachi shook his head. There's no need to thank me, I was just answering questions. Yeah, but that talk really helped me out like you wouldn't believe. Korra said eagerly. Itachi nodded and then turned back to face the moon. It was no trouble. He said softly. Meanwhile, unknown to Itachi and Korra, Yuki was hiding behind a wall as she overheard the conversation they had as she wiped some tears from her eyes after she heard what Itachi said about her. She already knew everything he had told Korra, but she still felt overjoyed and happy when she heard it from him directly. It was one of the main reasons she fell in love with him and why she married him. After all, how many people would willingly give up their bending just to try and keep the one they loved safe from harm? He still gets to me with that story. Yuki said as she was still wiping her tears and decided to head back inside before someone saw her. The next morning at the Metal Bender police station. Naruto was in full chief uniform as he finished debriefing his staff. Alright, dismissed people, you have things to do and little time to do it. Naruto ordered and everyone nodded and headed to their respected stations. Seiken walked up to him as they walked to Naruto's temporary office till his other one was cleaned up. Are the council members secured? Naruto asked while walking. Yes, chief, we have them in a temporary safe house in which they can relay their decisions to us. Seiken answered. Good. Make sure Councilman Tenzin gets that number so he can add into the discussions as well. Naruto said. Will do. Did the thing I order come in? Naruto asked. It should be in your temp office now, sir. They walked into said temp office and Naruto looked into the corner to see a large gourd. The gourd had a red band wrapped around the middle of it and a carrier strap going from the bottom to the top of it. It was made of hardened sand and filled with regular white sand as well. Naruto just hoped it would give him an edge in the upcoming battle. I still don't see why you would want the chief. Seiken commented out loud since they were in private. I've been improving my sandbending, Seiken, and it may come in handy. Naruto answered casually as he walked over to the gourd and secured it on his back. He walked around his office a bit to get a feel of having the gourd on his back and nodded to himself. It shouldn't get in the way too much during a fight. He took off the gourd and sat down in his chair. We know Amon is going to start moving soon, so I believe we should have the civilians evacuated from the city, less of a chance of Amon using them as hostages. Naruto ordered. We're already stretched thin as it is, chief. Along with the patrols and staff stationed at key points in the city, it's going to be difficult. Seiken commented. I don't care if it's difficult, I want it done. I won't have the people endangered by a lunatic. Naruto said gruffly. Of course, chief, I'll get right on it. Seiken said as he left the office. Good. Naruto nodded as he looked at the paperwork he missed. A few minutes passed by when all of a sudden multiple explosions could be heard. Naruto stood up and ran to the command room. Air Temple Island. Korra, along with the rest of the crew with Itachi and Yuki, were sitting around till they heard multiple explosions. They all started to head outside and saw Lin ordering the airbending kids inside. "We heard explosions, what's going on?" Korra asked Lin. "Republic City is under attack," Lin told them. "I'm going to get changed," Yuki said as she ran back into the temple. A few minutes later Yuki stepped out wearing some kind of form-fitting battle uniform. It was black all over and had pink shoulder guards, elbow guards, shin guards, stomach guard. She wore black boots and a red sash around her waist that held a katana and 2 battle fans that the Kaiashi warriors were known to have. "Let's go," she said as they boarded a boat that brought them to the harbor. New Team Avatar ran to the car that was parked nearby and hopped in, while Yuki walked up to her motorbike and tossed Itachi her spare helmet. Both Yuki and Asami revved the engine of their vehicles and head towards the police station to see what was up in Republic City. At Ichiraku's. Ichiraku was on his lunch break and shop closed when the door was slammed open. He looked to see 3 Kai blockers enter his shop and slurped his noodles. "We're closed," the waterbender said. They didn't respond and kept walking to him. Gucci sighed as he placed his ramen down and the Kai blocker charged at him. The chef raised his arms in the air as the cooking ramen in the back followed his movements and he used the noodles to grab one of the Kai blockers and slammed him into the wall which knocked him out since he hit his head hard on the wall. He used his second batch of ramen to hang the second Kai blocker in the air by his feet and then slam him onto the first one. The third one tried to kick him, but he ducked under it and threw the equalist a few feet as he called more ramen to his side and bitch slapped the third Kai blocker and continued to do so since the Kai blocker had been in shock that he was bitch slapped by noodles and was knocked out by the 10th slap. The second one got up and charged for him, but Tucci bended a hot portion of ramen and had it soak the Kai blocker's face as he started screaming about how hot it was and how it burned. The poor fool turned just in time to see a frying pan make contact with his face and knock him out. Gucci looked around and nodded at his work and sat back down to finish his lunch. He slurped the last of it and sighed, "Needs more salt," he muttered as he wrote his new idea down in a little book. "But Naruto." "Damn," Naruto muttered as he busted into the command room. "Status report," he ordered to the staff. "Sir, we have multiple wounded civilians and officers at some of the areas that had been set off. We have airships of unknown identification coming into the city. Most likely Amon, sir. The civilians are in a panic. We managed to start the evacuation like you had ordered, but we've only just started. Our patrol ships are intercepting Amon's ships now, sir. I want that evac done first, we need to keep the civilians safe. Next I want all patrol ships to take down Amon's, I don't care how, I just want them down. All officers not assigned to evac or air patrol is to return to the station ASAP for further orders." Naruto ordered, "Someone get me a wire to the UF general." "Sir." The staff answered as they got to work. An officer walked up to him and handed him a wire. "Here you go, chief." "Thanks." Naruto muttered in return. Naruto stated his message to his fellow grandchild of the first team Avatar and hoped he came fast. "Chief, Air Unit 7 was just taken out by an equalist airship. They've crashed into the harbor," an officer said. "Send a river rescue unit." Naruto responded quickly. "Chief, all river rescue ships have been sabotaged," a relay officer announced. "Damn," Naruto said as he banged his fist on the table, "get in contact with the closest evac unit in that area and have them commandeer a ship in the harbor." "Roger." The door busted open and Tenzin walked in. "Naruto," Tenzin said in relief. "Tenzin, good to see you," Naruto said as he looked at the map of the city on the table. "What the status?" Tenzin asked in worry. "Chaos everywhere, that psychos launched simultaneous attacks across the borough. I have my officers doing evac on the civilians while I have the rest trying to gain control, but we're spread too thin," Naruto growled. "I need a wire?" Tenzin asked. "I already sent him a message with everything he has to look forward to, Uncle Tenzin," Naruto replied as he was looking at the latest reports he was given. "Good resourcefulness, Naruto." Tenzin commented at how he was staying cool under pressure. "Chief, the phone line's gone dead," a relay officer said. "Crap, they're hitting us next," Naruto said in worry. The alarm suddenly went off and the power soon followed. "Fuck," Naruto stated and Tenzin slapped him behind the head. "Language, Naruto," Tenzin scolded. "This is not the time for manner lessons, Uncle Tenzin," the blonde shouted in return as he went under the table and grabbed a flashlight. "Heads up," Naruto said to Tenzin as he threw another flashlight which the monk caught and turned on. They heard a leaking sound and Tenzin turned his flashlight to the vents. "Naruto, the vents," the monk alerted. The blonde quickly metal bent the vents shut. Tenzin saw some smoke, most likely some sleeping agent, seeping through the bottom of the door and turned to Naruto. The blonde nodded, already knowing what his godfather was going to say. "Alright people, we're getting out of here," Naruto said as he grabbed his gourd and hefted it over his shoulder. "Everyone stay close to me," Tenzin said as they exited the command room in an air bubble. They finally managed to get outside and breathe fresh air when they came face to face with 6 mecha tanks with magnets on them. "Armor off," Naruto ordered as Seiken and 2 other metal benders did as told. The mecha tanks activated their magnets, and the armor the 4 metal benders wore just fell off and flew to the magnets, leaving them free from their magnets. The tank launched one of its cables at them, and Tenzin blocked it with an air blast and sent 2 more air blasts to push one tank back. Naruto stomped the ground and punched forward and sent 2 large earth spikes at one of the tank chest. He managed to get 2 dents into the tank and raised his arms in the air. The gourd on his back turned to sand around him as he got into an airbender stance. He sent a wave of sand to one tank and caught it by one of its arm joints. "Pressure, pressure, pressure, pressure," Naruto chanted in his mind as he slowly closed his fist and heard the sweet sound of metal screaming under the intense pressure. He fully closed his fist and the arm of the tank fell off. "Yes," Naruto cheered as he saw Seiken facing another tank on his own and the other 2 officers defending the non-bending officers from Kai blockers that decided to enter the fray. He turned to see Tenzin jump out of the way of a cable on to be hit mid-air and sent into the building's wall. Seiken was getting overwhelmed as 3 tanks converted on him and hit in from behind and shocking him. Naruto jumped out the way of an attack on him and ran to Tenzin while his sand followed. The Kai blockers took down the 2 officers and were rounding up the rest of the staff he managed to get out. Naruto cursed as he got into a guarded position in front of the downed Tenzin as 5 mecha tanks cornered them. He sent another wave of sand at the joint that connected the leg track to the body of a mecha tank and crushed it, thus crippling the tank. Just then Asami's car crashed into another tank, taking down the ones they had to fight to 3. Then he saw Yuki and Itachi flying in the air on a motorbike and bounced off another tank's beep pit and smashing it while they landed safely behind it in a skid. Mako and Bolin were facing of one of the last 2 tanks together as it sent an electrified cable at Mako and started to shock him, but the firebender redirected the shock and fired lightning back at it, causing it to short out as its engine exploded internally. Korra ran up to another one with water following her and jumped off one of the earth ramps Bolin had made and filled the pipes on its back with water, causing it to stall its engine. Bolin followed up with earth bending the ground under it to topple it. As the Kai blockers were placing the captured officers into a truck, Yuki and Itachi were on them in seconds as Itachi jumped over them and kicked 2 in the face, sending them to the ground. Over Republic City in an airship. An airship was overseeing the invasion. Inside the airship was none other than Amon and a few other equalists who were piloting the ship. Hiroshi was using a telescope to see the fight occurring at the police station. He was displeased to see his daughter still fighting on the side of the benders, but as the fight continued he saw something that got his attention. "Amon," he called out. Amon turned from his view of the city. "What is it?" He was silent for a moment before he pointed down towards the police station. "I think you should have a look at this, you're not going to like it," he said with worry. Amon walked over to see where he was pointing at before he looked at the telescope to see what was going on, and when he did his eyes widened at what he saw. There down at the police station was none other than Itachi fighting, but it wasn't Tenzin's group he was fighting, it was his own forces. Amon's grip on the telescope tightened until one could swear they saw it dent the metal from the force. "It seems we had a spy in our midst," Amon said with concealed anger. "What do we do about him? If he learned about our project then we'll be," Hiroshi began, but was silenced by a raised hand from Amon. "We'll deal with the traitor later, and as for the final project there's no need to worry. I made sure no one besides the workers would know about it. Even my own lieutenant doesn't know about them," Amon said without worry for having their plan being compromised. "What about my daughter? She's still fighting alongside those benders and I just can't stand it," the inventor said with a clenched fist as he wished his daughter was back with him. "We'll deal with the Avatar's team in due time and once they're dealt with you'll have your daughter back," Amon said with certainty. Back down in the fight. Yuki drew her sword and started to slash at another Kai blocker and rolled under a kick as she got behind the Kai blocker and hit him on the neck with the back of her blade. The last one charged at Yuki, but the Kaiashi warrior just smiled as he was zapped from behind by Asami. Itachi rolled out of the way of a kick and tapped the extended leg with 3 strikes, causing it to go limp and finished the opponent off with a good uppercut and flipped out of the way as the last of his opponents went after him. He got into his opponent's guard and grabbed him by the neck and slammed him into the ground and followed up by kicking him in the head, thus knocking the Kai blocker out. "You guys alright?" Korra asked as she hugged Naruto and looked at both him and Tenzin in concern. "For now," Tenzin said as he looked at the rest of the group. Thank you kids, I don't know how long Naruto would have been able to last. The monk said as he looked at the blonde. Yuki and Itachi were currently untying the captured officers while Seiken started to wake up from his shock and started to hobble over to Naruto. You okay? Naruto asked in concern. It takes more than this to hold me down, sir. Seiken said as he rubbed his arm from the pain he was clearly in. Guys look. Mako said as he pointed to an equalist airship that was heading to Air Temple Island. Oh no. Tenzin said in fear. Seiken, you round up this group and head for one of the bunkers. We'll meet up later. Naruto ordered. Sir. The elder officer responded as he went to do his assignment. Quick, Tugi. Tenzin said as the group ran to the flying bison. They flew to the island and landed as they saw Lin with the kids. Tenzin jumped off immediately and hugged Jinora and Ikki while Milo jumped on his back. Thank goodness you're alright. Tenzin said. We caught the bad guys. Milo said. You let them fight. Tenzin asked Lin in anger, do you realize what could have happened? Lin looked at him impassively. I would have been toast if it weren't for your kids. You should be proud. She said as she crossed her arms, you taught them well. She complimented with a small smile. Tenzin looked at each of his children with fondness. Go on, be with your wife. Lin said as Tenzin and the kids walked inside. The rest of the gang followed them and saw Tenzin holding his newborn son. We already picked a name. Pima said as she laid in bed. Rohin. Tenzin said as he held his son. Naruto smiled and looked at his mother while Lin rubbed his hair gently as she remembered those memorable times that he was so young. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but more airships are coming. Korra said in sadness. Everything's not going to be fine, is it daddy? Ikki asked in a sad tone. Tenzin frowned as he looked at Rohin. Everyone exited outside to see more airships heading their way. What do you want to do, Tenzin? Korra asked in worry. Tenzin sighed heavily, I need to protect my family and get them as far away from this conflict as possible. He said as he looked at Lin, if Amon got his hands on my children I hate to even think of it. He said. If you're leaving, then I'm going with you. Lin said. Tenzin tried to argue, but Lin cut him off. No arguments, you and your family are the last airbenders. There's no way in the world I'm letting Amon take your bending away. She stated in defiance. Thank you, Lin. Tenzin said as he turned to Korra and Naruto. Korra, I want you and the rest to leave the island and hide for the time being. Tenzin said. I'm not giving up. Korra argued. I'm not asking you to. Naruto had sent word to the United Forces. They will be here soon and once my family is safe, I will return. With the reinforcements we can turn the tide in this war. Tenzin reasoned. What you're saying is we need to be patient. Korra said in a dejected tone. The monk rested a hand on her shoulder, you're learning well. He said. Korra gave him a small smile as they prepared to leave. Korra hugged Tenzin while he returned it. Stay safe, Korra. You too. She said back. Naruto hugged his mother and looked her straight in the eyes. You come back safe. Naruto said. Lin hugged him and whispered, I will. Stay safe. She said as she let go and hopped onto Yuki. Tenzin, if we're leaving, we better do it now. Lin said and Tenzin air jumped onto the bison. Yuki yip yip. Tenzin said and the bison took off with the air acolytes on another bison. Airships started to follow the flying bisons, but one remained behind. High blockers jumped down the railing cable attached to the island and the White Lotus sentries guarded Korra and the rest. Go, we'll hold them off. One of them ordered and the group started to run. Eyes climb on. Korra said as Mako, Bolin and Asami jumped onto Naga. Eyes grab onto me. Naruto said as Itachi and Yuki grabbed his shoulders and he started to ride an earth wave and kept pace with Naga. Mustache guy. Bolin exclaimed as the lieutenant came sliding down the mountainside. Naga jumped into the air as the lieutenant did and batted him away with one of her paws as he fell down the cliff and into a tree. Ouch, I bet that's gonna leave a mark. Naruto though as he cringed from seeing that fall. Nice one, Naga. Korra compliment. They jumped into the water and Naruto and his riders followed as they latched onto Naga's saddle and Korra water bent an air bubble around them as they head for land. On the high seas. The cultured-looking man in a red military uniform stood at the top of a ship. General, I just received a wire from the Avatar and Chief Bifrong. She says Amon and his forces have gained control of the city. While Chief Bifrong has stated that he managed to get most of the civilians to safety. How do you wish to respond? The crewman asked. Tell her we will be arriving in 3 days' time and I look forward to winning back Republic City together. The man commented. As you wish, General Iroh. The soldier said saluting but looked worried. Also Chief Bifrong sent along a personal message. What does it say? Iroh asked. The soldier gulped. This is his words, not mine, sir. Ahem, to His Royal Emonus III, move your ass, you sluppook. End of message, sir. Iroh sighed and said, "Yep, that's Naruto for you." As he palmed his face, "I am not emo," he thought to himself. With Lin. It was raining heavily as Lin was brought in front of Amon after she had been captured while taking down an equalist airship. She looked ragged as she looked up to see Amon looking down at her like he was about to pass judgment. "Tell me where the Avatar is and I'll let you keep your bending while leaving your son out of it," he said. "I won't tell you anything, you monster," Lin answered with a sneer. "Very well then, you've made your choice," Amon said as he walked behind her and held her head as he pressed his thumb to her forehead. Lin closed her eyes as Amon took her bending. She fell to the ground and with her last breath before she passed out, she said, "Sorry Naruto Kazuo." As she thought about her son and husband. With the crew. Naruto and Korra looked as Air Temple Island was taken over and Naruto placed a hand on her shoulder. "Come on water princess, we gotta get going," Naruto said and Korra nodded. "Ah, the smell of war. Isn't it lovely?" a deep voice asked. The group turned around in attacking position but saw no one. "Down here you stupid humans," said the voice. They looked sown to see Kurama, but he was different. His upper body was that of the upper body structure of a human, complete with opposable thumbs on his clawed hands. He was a bit bigger and his tail was longer. "Kurama?" Naruto asked in surprise that his pet was talking. "Hello, idiot owner of mine," the fox said cynically with an all-knowing grin on his face. End chapter. So this part ends here. If you want to see next part of this series, like the video now and share the story with your friends. Bye bye.